Well, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining me for Season 4, Catholic Breakfast. We're taking a look at why be Catholic. Special thanks to Mr. Trent Horn for writing this marvelous book, so kind of loosely based on the book. Why we believe in a creator God. So we're exploring the rationality of Catholicism. We're a smart religion. We like to think about our faith, think about the things of God. And this is a really good one to help strengthen our faith and also help us to speak rationally and coherently about people who don't understand God. So there's lots of arguments for God's existence. If you go to Peter Kreeft's website, he's got 20, and they're all really, really good. So Catholics, you should know at least 2 or 3 arguments for God's existence, objections against them, and then how to handle those objections. The other day, a mom came to me and she said, Father, I got this teenage daughter, and there's a problem. And I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, she says that she doesn't think God exists. And I said, well, did you ask her why? And she's like, no, what's wrong with her? What should I do? And I said, ask her why. Right? Have a rational conversation about God. So we want to move from just like superficial doubting, like I just doubt God exists. That doesn't really get us anywhere. We want to move into investigating, exploring, questioning, putting our minds to work. So let's just do one in this video, and it's the Kalam Argument. It's the one Trent does in this book. It's one of my top, say, 4 favorite arguments for God's existence. So let's get into it. Premise 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause for its existence. Okay, that's premise 1. Premise 2, I'll just walk you through the argument and then we'll talk about it. Premise 2, the universe began to exist. Conclusion, therefore the universe has a cause for its existence. All right, simple, right? Simple, clean. This argument really started to get, it's been around for a long time. It took this form in the medieval era. So premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause for its existence. In philosophy, we call this the principle of sufficient causality. So something exists. There has to be a sufficient reason to explain that it's there. This is the basic principle. If there's not sufficient reason to explain that it's there, it's not going to be there. If it is there, there are sufficient causes to explain it being there. In other words, things just don't pop into existence. This is something that's just kind of granted by human beings in general. It's considered just basically a certain principle. Now here's premise 2. The universe began to exist. This is one debated by philosophers for millennia, but in terms of modern cosmology, understanding of the universe, it's got good scientific evidence. Think like the Big Bang, right? That the universe is expanding, laws of entropy, etc. So lots of reasons to think that the universe, all of space and time, is over 13 billion years old, but had a definitive start. And also in philosophy, you can't have an infinite regress of infinite days back. We won't get into that reasons for that, but both cosmology, science, and philosophy hold that the universe had a beginning in time. Therefore, the universe itself, all of space and time, had a beginning. What can we say about that cause, right? Which we want to eventually say that's what people call God. First, since the cause caused all of space and time, the cause itself cannot be material, like spatial, because it caused all space, and it also must be outside of time. Its reality is not a sequence of moments, however you define time, because it created all of time by definition. Also, this cause, because it created all of space and time, all of reality, all of the universe out of nothing, it must be infinitely powerful, because it would take an infinite amount of power to go from nothing to something. Lastly, this cause must be personal, because it would have to choose to create. Now, those are just some of the properties that we can deduce. So that's the Kalam argument. Another objection to the Kalam argument, which is quite frequent, is the fallacy of special pleading. In this sense, the opponent to the argument might say, okay, so I thought everything that exists has a cause, but you're saying God is the one thing that doesn't have a cause. So that's special pleading, where you just say, just give me an exception over here, but don't worry, why? Well, remember the first premise is whatever begins to exist has a cause. What is built into this argument is that there's the possibility of a distinction between existent realities which are caused to exist and an existent reality which is not caused to exist. And it's two modes of reality, created being and uncreated being. The argument is seeking to make an argument for the reality of the uncreated mode of being, that which has no cause and it has the properties that we say are proper to an uncreated reality, which we call God. When you're dealing with this argument, just keep that in mind. The first premise is not everything has a cause, but that everything which begins to exist. Kids, by the way, get this instinctively when they say, well, what created God? I've had lots of times little kids will say, yeah, but what created God in the classroom? And sometimes I'll just say, there's a created mode of being, finite created reality, and that creatures, and then there's uncreated being that's proper to the creator alone. It sounds like special pleading, but it's really not. It's just two modes of reality. And the argument is seeking to rationally ground the uncreated mode of being. So that's just one. That's one I like. I also really like the argument from contingency, which Thomas Aquinas himself really, really loves. Also love the argument from conscience, which is powerful for people because it's about my own experience of my own conscience, the sense of right and wrong. C.S. Lewis loved that one, by the way. Also, the ontological argument is wonderful. I won't go into any detail on those now, but there's lots of arguments. Find one or two or maybe even three. Try to understand it. It'll strengthen your rational ground for faith, and it'll also help you explain this beautiful rationality and rational path to God to others. God bless you.